Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is aircraft woman Desiree King. We warmly welcome the family of Warrant Officer Class 2 Kevin Arthur Wheatley, VC. Today marks the 55th anniversary of his death, which occurred whilst on operations on the 13th of November 1965 during the Vietnam War. His story will be told shortly. We're honoured to welcome His Excellency General the Honourable David Hurley, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, and Her Excellency Mrs Linda Hurley. We're also honoured to welcome all other dignitaries and visitors who are joining us today to commemorate this significant occasion. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection in the following order. The first 4 wreaths of this evening's ceremony will be laid by the family of Warrant Officer Kevin Wheatley, VC, to commemorate his service and sacrifice. His Excellency General, the Honourable David Hurley, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, and Her Excellency, Mrs. Linda Hurley. Colonel Scott Weston, United States Embassy Defence Attaché, representing the Ambassador of the United States of America. Lieutenant General Rick Burr, Chief of Army Australia, and Warrant Officer Grant McFarlane, Regimental Sergeant Major, Australian Army. Mr Keith Payne, VC, accompanied by Mr Rick Meehan, Mr Doug Ratty and Mr Fred Campbell of the Keith Payne VC Veterans Benefit Group. Mr Kerry Stokes, Chairman of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, and Ms Christine Simpson Stokes. Dr Brendan Nelson, President, Boeing Australia, New Zealand and South Pacific, and Ms Gillian Adamson. Mr Ray James, Acting President, RSL New South Wales Branch, and Mr Phil Williams, President, Woonona Bulli RSL Sub-Branch. Mr Jeff Hazel, representing the Australian Army Training Team Vietnam Association, Mr Ron Payne, President, and Mr Jared Kay, Secretary, Morford Vale RSL Sub-Branch, who are also representing the Australian Army Training Team Vietnam Association, South Australian Branch. Mr Chris Hartley, Chairman, the King's Cup. And our final wreaths this evening will be laid by visitors to the memorial.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Warrant Officer Class 2, Kevin Arthur Dasher Wheatley. Kevin Wheatley was born on the 13th of March in 1937 in Surrey Hills, New South Wales. He was the third child of Raymond and Ivy Wheatley. Growing up, Wheatley attended Maroubra Junction Junior Technical College, where he was given the nickname Patches due to the threadbare nature of his clothing. After leaving school, he went on to work with his father as a milk carter, and over the next several years held a variety of different jobs. Outside of work, Wheatley had an active social life. He played rugby league and golf on occasion. His nickname Dasher was acquired on the rugby field. Despite his stature of 5 feet 6 inches, he was fast and had the ability to run through the opponents. He also enjoyed swimming and dancing and going to the cinema. During this time, he met Edna Davis, and they began a relationship. They were married on the 20th of July, 1954, at the Register General's office in Sydney. Seeking a stable and active career to support his wife and growing family, Wheatley joined the Australian Army on the 12th of June, 1956, for a period of 3 years. After completing his recruit training in September, he was posted to 4 RAR, which at that time was the Infantry Training Unit. He completed his infantry training in March 1957 and was posted to 3 RAR, which was preparing to deploy to Malaya. 3 RAR arrived in Malaya in September 1957. While in Malaya, the battalion was stationed at Minden Barracks in the foothills on the eastern side of the island. Although Minden was the nominal home of the battalion whilst it was in Malaya, it rarely spent any length of time there. Operations through the jungle lasted days or even weeks at a time, and breaks between operations were brief. In the rare downtime, Wheatley took up boxing and was renowned for his insubordination towards British officers and senior NCOs. While in Malaya, Wheatley signed on for a further 6 years of service. Soon after returning to Australia in August 1959, Wheatley, now a corporal, was posted to 2 RAR and then 2 years later to 1 RAR. In January 1964, he was promoted to sergeant and became the platoon sergeant of 6th Platoon B Company. One of his young soldiers, David Munday, recalled that Wheatley was an extraordinary man's man. He just had a way with the guys, and when he walked into a room, your presence drew his attention. Wheatley was highly regarded for his training of soldiers. One of his training mantras was, "Someday you'll have to do it real hard and real dirty." This extended to field exercise, where the platoon's bathing habits led them to be called the Scungies. In August 1964, Wheatley was promoted to Warrant Officer Class 2 and became the Company Sergeant Major of B Company. Wheatley was posted to the Australian Army Training Team, Vietnam, and arrived in South Vietnam in March 1965. He was sent as an advisor to the 1st Battalion, 1st Regiment of the 1st Army of the Republic of Vietnam Division. His platoon commander was United States Marine Lieutenant Jim Lowe, who recalled Wheatley as being a prankster, but also had an exceptional understanding of fighting counterinsurgency warfare. The two men worked well together, training and leading their ARVN soldiers until October, when Wheatley was posted to the US 5th Special Forces Group. He was posted to an A-team led by Australian Captain Felix Fezekis and was also reunited with his mate, Warrant Officer Class 2 Ron Butch Swanton. On the 13th of November, Wheatley, Swanton and Captain Fezekis went out in operation with South Vietnamese troops. The citation for the award for the Victoria Cross to Wheatley tells the story of the events that followed. At approximately 1300 hours, a Vietnamese Civil Irregular Defence Group company commenced a search and destroy operation in the Tra Bong Valley, 15 kilometres east of Tra Bong Special Forces Camp in Quang Ngai Province. Accompanying the force were Captain F. Fezekis, Senior Australian Advisor with the Centre Platoon, and Warrant Officers K.A. Wheatley and R.J. Swanton with the right-hand platoon. At about 1340 hours, Warrant Officer Wheatley reported contact with Viet Cong elements. The Viet Cong resistance had increased in strength until finally Warrant Officer Wheatley asked for assistance. Captain Fezekis immediately organised the centre platoon to help and personally led and fought towards the action area. While moving towards this area, he received another radio message from Warrant Officer Wheatley to say that Warrant Officer Swanton had been hit in the chest and requested an airstrike and an aircraft for evacuation of casualties. At about this time, the right platoon broke in the face of heavy Viet Cong fire and began to scatter. Although told by the Civil Irregular Defence Group medical assistant that Warrant Officer Swanton was dying, Warrant Officer Wheatley refused to abandon him. He discarded his radio to enable him to half-drag, half-carry Warrant Officer Swanton under heavy machine gun and automatic rifle fire out of the open rice paddies and into the comparative safety of a wooded area some 200 metres away. He was assisted by a civil irregular defence group member, Private Ding Do, who, when the Viet Cong were only some 10 metres away, urged him to leave his dying comrade. Again, he refused, and was seen to pull the pins from 2 grenades and calmly awaited the Viet Cong, holding 1 grenade in each hand. Shortly afterwards, 2 grenade explosions were heard, followed by several bursts of small arms fire. The 2 bodies were found at first light the next morning after the fighting had ceased, with Warrant Officer Wheatley lying beside Warrant Officer Swanton. Both had died of gunshot wounds. Warrant Officer Wheatley displayed magnificent courage in the face of an overwhelming Viet Cong force, which was later estimated at more than a company. He had the clear choice of abandoning a wounded comrade and saving himself by escaping through the dense timber, or staying with Warrant Officer Swanton and thereby facing certain death. He deliberately chose the latter course. His acts of heroism, determination, and unflinching loyalty in the face of the enemy will always stand as examples of the true meaning of valour. On hearing of his friend's death, Jim Lowe organised a collection from advisors from around One Corps and soon had more than enough money to pay for the return of Wheatley and Swanton's remains to Australia, and also set up a trust fund for Wheatley's 4 children. Wheatley was laid to rest with full military honours in Pine Grove Cemetery, Eastern Creek, Sydney. He was 28 years old. The award of the Victoria Cross to Wheatley was announced in the London Gazette on the 15th of December 1966. And in 1967, the Wheatley family was flown to Canberra, where Dash's son George was presented with his father's Victoria Cross by the Governor-General, Lord Casey. He had been awarded the United States Silver Star several weeks before his death, and the Republic of Vietnam appointed him a Knight of its National Order and awarded him the Military Merit Medal and Cross of Gallantry with Palm. These medals are displayed in the Memorial's Hall of Valour. Kevin Wheatley's name is listed on the honour roll on my left, with more than 500 others from the Vietnam War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Warrant Officer Class 2, Kevin Arthur Dasher Wheatley, VC, who gave his life for us, our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. Going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. Lest we forget. Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.